Hello, this is a new video in the series Verge3D for Blender Basics. In this part of the tutorial, we'll be creating animation, the playback of which is triggered by user action. Before we start, let's reorganize our scene a bit. Let's put auxiliary objects, such as the camera, its empty object, and the sphere, in a collection. We name this collection Scene and hide it for now so that it doesn't mess up with our main objects. All non-animated parts of the knife will be in another collection. Name it Static Parts. Finally, we add all the parts we are going to animate to another collection. Which we'll name Animated Parts. Let's hide it for now. We added everything except these spring objects. We won't be using them at first, so let's add them to their own collection, which we name Scissors Parts. For our convenience, let's disable rendering for it, as well as visibility. Let's make the animated parts visible again and hide the non-animated meshes. Now we are ready to make some animation. We'll be using the timeline area to insert keyframes. Let's limit the timeline to 50 frames. This will be enough for our simple animation. We won't be opening the blades fully as it happens in real life. Instead, we want to show all the instruments at once, each of them unfolded in its individual position. First of all, let's freeze the starting positions of all instruments. Select all the instruments and set the current frame to 1. Use hotkey I on your keyboard to add rotation keyframes, which are added for all 3 coordinates. Now we can begin animating. Let's move to frame 50 on the timeline. While at the first frame, all the instruments are in their initial position, but at frame 50, they will be in their final position. Let's move this blade and use the I hotkey again to add a rotation keyframe for it. Now it is animated. Let's create animation for all other instruments by inserting keys at frame 50. So basically this is it with this animation. The only thing left is to animate the scissors. There is a problem with scissors, however. If we simply add a key at frame 50, it starts animation right away. If we unhide the static parts and run the animation, we can see that the scissors will poke through the body mesh at some point. To fix this, we need to animate this part using some delay. To do this, let's make the animation wait until frame 20. Reset rotation for this part and add a key. As a result, this part of scissors won't be animated from frame 1 to frame 20. It will start moving only after reaching frame 20. And as such, it no longer pokes through the body of the knife. Now let's export our animation to Verge3D. If we run our app, we can see animation is automatically played back right away. We don't want this to happen in our app. So let's get back to Blender. Select all animated parts and while holding the Alt key, uncheck Auto Start in Verge3D animation settings. This will uncheck this option for each of the selected objects. Let's re-export this scene. Refresh the app. The animation no longer starts, which is good because we want to start it with a button click. This is exactly what we are going to do right now. Go to the puzzles editor. Our buttons are basically HTML elements, so we'll be adding the HTML event puzzle. Select Click. We also need a text puzzle with element ID. Let's duplicate this puzzle from here and type the ID. Unfold button. With this, the ID we assigned it to this button in Webflow. So now this puzzle will wait until the unfold button clicked. We also need to check the option in parent doc, because this element is located in the auto.html file. Finally, we need to add a puzzle to be able to start the animation. We'll be using a group selector rather than object. Let's select the group Animated Parts, which corresponds to the same name collection in Blender. We also need another puzzle called Get Animations, which can get all the animations from our collection and pass them to the Play Animation puzzle. Let's check it. Save and refresh the app. If we click the button, the animation starts playing back. Now it is repeating over and over. To fix this, let's change the loop parameter to once. Now the animation is played just once rather than looping infinitely. Let's do this with the second button, which folds the instruments back. We can just copy and paste these puzzles and rename the ID in the text field to Fold button. We also need to play the animation from the frame 50 to frame 1, that is, in reverse. To do this, go to the Puzzles configuration menu and check Advanced Playback Options. This adds more parameters to the puzzles, out of which we want to just check the reversed checkbox. Now let's save and see how it works in the app. Now the first button plays back the animation from frame 1 to 50, while the second button does the opposite. However, there is a small problem. Namely, the folding animation can be played back even if the knife is already in its folded state. Kinda weird. We should check the state to allow animation only if the knife is in right state. The state can be tracked through a so-called variable. Let's add a variable and name it unfolded knife. When the app just started, the knife is in its folded state. So let's assign this variable a false value, meaning that the knife is folded. And we'll be checking if the knife is folded or unfolded using the logic block if. Let's also add a comparison puzzle and insert our variable. We'll be comparing it with the values true or false. So if the knife is folded, the unfolding animation should be allowed. We'll be validating this fact inside our event click puzzle. On the contrary, the folding animation should be allowed only if the knife is unfolded. Finally, we should switch the value of our variable once the animation is finished, so that we keep tracking if the knife is folded or unfolded at each moment. After we click the Unfold button and its animation is finished, we should set the value of our variable to true, meaning that the knife has become unfolded. To do this, go to the puzzle configuration again and check When Finished slot. This reveals a slot to which we can add puzzles to be triggered once the animation ends. Move our variable assigned to this slot. Let's do the same with the folding animation. So when the reverse animation is finished, the knife is considered as folded. Save and refresh the app and see how it works. The knife unfolds, but when we click the same button again, it no longer plays the animation. And once it folds, it never plays the folding animation again, as the state is tracked through the variable. Now the animations are played back only when we want them to. This is it with the simple rotation animation. Now let's animate the scissors spring, which is a bit more advanced topic. As you can see, we have two objects for the spring here. One of the springs is in compressed state, which corresponds to scissors being completely folded in the knife. The second spring is for fully unfolded scissors. The angle is in a slightly incorrect position, so let's rotate it a bit and reinsert the key at frame 50. To animate the spring, we'll be using shape key animation, aka morph target animation. So we'll create shape keys, that is recorded positions or vertices inside the mesh. These vertices will be simply moving from one recorded position to the other. There are different ways to do such an animation. One possible way is to manually move the vertices to the desired position. We could add a basis shape key from which the geometry would move to another position, and add another shape key for animation. We could then hit Tab to edit the geometry for this key, for example, like this. It would remember the new position and we could animate the value for this key relative to the basis key. We, however, already have a pre-modeled geometry for the shape key. It is important to have the topology of the second geometry exactly the same as in the original mesh, so that there is the same number of vertices and they are indexed in the same manner. But it is really easy to create because you can just copy the original mesh and only adjust vertices inside, making sure that you are not adding or removing vertices or applying any modifiers. After you obtain such a geometry, you can use it for a shape key. Select it first and then select the original mesh with Shift-K pressed. Go to Shape Keys, click on this arrow button and select Join as Shapes, so it automatically assigns a shape key to the original mesh. Now we are prepared for animation. Let's delete this geometry as we no longer need it. Put the spring object to the collection animated parts created in the beginning of this video. Delete the obsolete collection. Set the timeline to frame 1. Now let's animate. Make sure the value is 0 and add a key by right-clicking on it and selecting Insert Keyframe. There are no changes until frame 20. It's only after frame 20 the scissors begin unfolding, so we should insert another 0 key here. Finally, the animation goes on until frame 50. So we should change the value to 1 and insert a key at frame 50. Now the spring is animated together with the blade of the scissors. However, a slight delay is noticeable. To fix this, we can switch to Animation Workspace. Open up the Graph Editor, which we can tweak our animation with. As we can see, the animation is not linear, it accelerates and then slows down. We can change the slope of this curve a bit to make the spring perfectly follow the blade. To do this, select the control point for the starting key and move it a bit, so that the spring sticks closer to the blade. It now looks much better. But there is a small delay near the end. We can fix this by moving the control point for this key as well. Now the animations for a spring and the blade are perfectly synchronized. This is basically it with the animation. Just make sure that Auto Start is disabled for the spring object. We can now export our scene to Verge3D. Get back to the app and refresh. Now, if we launch the animation, we can see that the spring also animates. This is because we put the spring object to the collection for animated parts. And thus, no changes are needed to make in the puzzle's S scenario. It also is played back in reverse. This is great, but what if we accentuate the animation with some sounds? We've got sounds for folding and unfolding. You can find them in the starter files. See the link below. Let's just copy these sounds together with its folder to the application folder. To use these sounds in your app, we should get back to our puzzles. We'll be using the playback from the sound category as well as the sound puzzle. We only need to type the path to our sound file. It is located inside the sounds folder, so we should reflect this in the path. We'll put it inside the event click puzzle, so that it is played together with the animation. Let's copy it for the reverse animation and just rename the sound. If we run the app now, we should hear the sound. Maybe it is too loud. We can fix it by adding another puzzle. Set volume. We should insert the sound puzzle here and make the volume say 0.1. The sound is loaded once and cached by the engine. So it is better to make it at the moment the app is started rather than when the animation is played. Let's check it out in the app. Now the sound is quieter, just like we wanted it. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.